What is up, Panther Nation? Bill Mack here with another edition of the Panther Prowl. Glad everyone could join me for the video. Glad you clicked on this video. Glad you are joining me here. This is the Carolina Panthers 2023 season preview. I have not put a video out since the end of last season. A lot has went on. I kind of waited until we had quite a few things happen here on the Panther Nation, and then now that we are back for a new season, the preseason is now over with. A lot has happened since the ending of last year's season up until this year's beginning of this year's season, and I will try to bring it to you as close and informative, as compact as I possibly can. Of course, last year was really horrible. The Carolina Panthers, of course, did a lot of overhaul to their team. And there is a new sense of optimism here this year. There is a new sense of a lot of changes and a lot of hope coming into it here this year. So we'll just get started into it, and we'll break down every little bit of the thing here, give you my little tidbit here, and then we'll move along here. Of course, one of the biggest stories of the organization was, of course, the firing of Matt Rule. Now, Matt Rule came in, lasted 5 games of year 3. Matt Rule basically was not fit and not situated to be a NFL coach, especially not with the Carolina Panthers. Now, Matt Rule got fired, as we know of from last season, 5 games into 2022 season. And then we had temporary coach Steve Wilkes in to finish the season out. So then the big question is, where do we go with coach? What kind of coach do we get? We know that David Tepper has stated previously that he would have loved to have been able to have a offensive-minded coach. And as we know, Panther Nation, over the past few seasons, and basically since our existence, we've always went defensive-minded coach. We've never once hired an offensive-minded coach. So it would be looking to buck the trend in Carolina by going after an offensive-minded coach. So with that in mind, that would basically eliminate Steve Wilkes from retaining his position here. So the Panthers put on a very extensive coaching search for the next coach of the Carolina Panthers. It took over weeks. Different candidates called in, 2 rounds of some interviews, but when it came down to it, when the final pick was made, Carolina came in and they welcomed, of course, he's someone that we are very familiar with in Panther Nation. Of course, he should be, as any historical Panther fans from day one, and I mean literally day one. And this guy is no slouch. He has been part of organizations that have had really good quarterbacks, part of organization that did win a Super Bowl and has been successful in quarterbacks having really good years under him. So what do? We find out Carolina Panthers ended up welcoming in Frank Wright. Now, as anybody knew Frank Wright, he was the very first Carolina Panthers quarterback in Panther history. Played in the Hall of Fame game back when the Panthers came in '95, and he had stops over in New Orleans. He had stops over in Philadelphia. He had stops in Indianapolis before making his way back to Carolina. He already had a daughter that was really already working within the organization, and it was great to have him back. He's had a good reputation of being able to work with good quarterbacks, which is what we were doing. So then that begs the question. So we've got Frank Wright. Frank Wright come in, fresh regime now. We know that we're going to have an overhaul there. Next, we have quarterback. Of course, quarterback was the number one topic of position when it comes to Carolina Panthers. What would the Panthers do? As of course, last season we had numerous musical chairs in that quarterback position. We had to start the season off. We had Sam Darnold. We had Matt Corral. We had Baker Mayfield. We had PJ Walker. We just had so many people taking over that behind, underneath the center, and just none of them really panned out to work out. We did go in the 3rd round last season and hire and pick Matt Corral, but Matt Corral got hurt early on in preseason. Wasn't to be seen. None of the season spent, trying to rehab. He is back this season, but he will not be the quarterback QB1 under center when it comes to it. So, of course, what do we do? How do we get our quarterback? Where do we get him from? Do we do a trade? Do we try to sign one in free agency? Do we try to go out and get one that we can know that will in the draft that was coming up? So, what to do? What to do? So then, when the Panthers finally come all full circle about it, they got Frank Wright. The only natural thing to do was, why don't you get a quarterback out of the draft? Draft your franchise quarterback, someone that you're going to lay the hopes that can take the Panthers out of this mass that they're in, this dark mass that they've been under, this dark clouds they've been under, and bring them back to the forefront. Bring them back to some of that glory that they had back in 2015, making that franchise quarterback. So what would they? But how would they do it? They were at peak number 9 overall. Well, you know how they did it. They went to the draft. They made a trade up. They made a very vital and a very boss-like move in going and trading up with the Chicago Bears, trading their 9th pick. They traded a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick, and then a 1st round pick next year as well. And I think a 3rd rounder the following year. And what would they do? They went up 1st overall pick. They went to the combines. And it was basically a two-man horse race here. You had C.J. Stroud, which was quarterback, and you also had quarterback Bryce Young. Of course, Bryce Young with Alabama was a former Heisman Trophy winner. C.J. Stroud, it was neck and neck pretty much the whole way through until right before draft came up. And the draft came up, then I was like, who is going to get it? Is it C.J.? Is it Bryce? What are we hearing? What is going to go? Who is going to be the quarterback under center for the Carolina Panthers and hopefully take them up and give them some sort of sense of sunshine, some sort of sense of notoriety again, some sense of being talked about as being a team that will continuously compete and be in the top in the division as well as the conference as well as the whole NFL. Well, when it come down to it, when the time Roger Goodell came up to the podium and he announced, we said, with the 1st pick in the 2023 draft, the Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young. Bryce Young out of Alabama becomes the number 1 overall pick by the Carolina Panthers, who hadn't had the number 1 overall pick since 2008. I'm not sure. I'm gonna get slayed for this, but not since Cam Newton got drafted have the Panthers had the number 1 overall pick, and not since Cam Newton have they used a quarterback for their 1st overall pick. So Bryce Young out of Alabama and there were some things with some bright spots to Bryce, and there was some negatives that were looked towards him as we look back. And some of the bright spots were the things coming out of the combine, and what the Panthers really liked about him is his ability to process, his ability to look downfield, his ability to look at the defense. What is the defense doing? He had been compared for the last few seasons over with, I would say, Peyton Manning as far as being able to process. We know the kind of smarts that Peyton Manning had when he was behind under center and looking at the defenses and being able to do that. Bryce was very high in processing, also being able to make things happen, being able to improvise. These were the things that we saw that he was really, really good at. Now, one of the only negatives, or not negatives, I would say maybe not so positive aspects was his size. Now, at the time of the draft, it was estimated that Bryce Young was 5'9", 5'10", and he was only 195 pounds. So some would say, well, the size, and a lot of the noise was in his size. But for me, the height wasn't so bad, because I know that you had Drew Brees, you had Russell Wilson, 5'9", 5'10", but I think it was in his size, his frame. He's got a very small frame. Even if he was to bulk up, the frame's only going to be so big. So more or less, they were worried about his size. 195 pounds. That is very, very small. A very small frame for a quarterback, to be back there, especially with how fast and big these linemen are, and these linebackers and these defenses are, and trying to get after him. So that would be the test. Would he be able to handle this? And we're going to see this upcoming season. So, but Bryce wasn't the only one the Panthers had drafted. There were some other choices that the Panthers felt like a couple of them that they hit on, a couple of them that we're going to wait and see. So, 2023 draft saw, of course, Bryce getting the first round, first position overall. But did the Panthers needed to get a wide receiver, because in the wide receiver, we ended up in that trade with Chicago giving up our number one wide receiver, which was DJ Moore. And the Bears valued DJ Moore as a first round pick. So we gave up DJ Moore along with the picks that we had to move up to number one overall. So then what would we do? Well, we go to Ole Miss in the second round, and with the 39th place in the second round, and we draft Matt Corral's old wide receiver, Jonathan Mingo out. Now Mingo has shown flashes during this off season, during this preseason, I would say. And if he and Bryce can really gel together, really can get right in there and pretty much get working their time, and they need to pair each other together because they're both the youngest players on the when it comes to the offense that need to, especially in that wide receiver core, which we will get into that as well. So then the Panthers were picking around for, traded up 3 spaces, went into the third round and position in the 80th position, and they drafted DJ Johnson. DJ is an edge rusher here out of Oregon. He remains to be seen. He still seems some to be a project. We will see, though, how he does as the season progresses. He could be a project, but he could be someone that could turn out well for us as the season goes on. Now, a favorite that I actually enjoyed that we got was local product out of Raleigh in the 4th round. Carolina ended up picking up some O-line help. We needed O-line help to build some depth on there, as well as having some flexibility on that O-line, and knowing that the Panthers weren't the only ones that needed O-line help, and we ended up getting Chandler Savala out of NC State. Chandler Savala, if any of the State fans know him, played maybe 5 games with Icky and whatnot, but he said he felt like, hey, I can get in there and me and Icky can get on that left side and do what we're going to do. But Brady Christensen over there, so Icky has been working out pretty much on the right side, because over there on the right side, which is where Taylor Moton is on that side, is pretty much going to be him trying to get that spot, trying to shore up that spot. It's up for grabs, and we shall see if Chandler Zavala turns out and be's that person that we need to fill that right side. Because remember, Taylor Moton did take a step back. He is getting a little older now, and so it's going to remain to be seen to have someone young in there, someone that can get those spots, and someone that can fill those voids, when we lose one player to the next. And rounding out in the 5th round, our 5th pick, which was our last but not least, was Jamie Robinson. He is a safety out of Florida State. He looks to be a dog. I hadn't heard much out of him doing anything as far as in the preseason. I haven't heard too much of them going his way, which could be a good thing. But he come in with a chip on his shoulder. He stated in there strictly that there weren't 144 people better than him, which he was to pick 145. And so let's hope this young man comes in, because our Panthers secondary is definitely one that needs some strong strength. With the past couple of years, and her injuries have come to Dante Jackson, and then for the second year in a row with CJ Horn, hoping Jamie picks up on it and becomes another safety that we need to have in that secondary that's going to need help, because as I've stated, I didn't give all the names of all the coaching staff that we did, but we did get in Jairo Evero from the Denver Broncos, who runs a 3-4 defense. So Panthers will be trading up. Will be changing to a 3-4 base this year. It won't be strictly just 3-4, but the base overall will be a 3-4 base. So now we've got our draft picks, which on to free agency. Now Carolina had some notable free agency and filled some of the spots that they may have not filled or was able to fill in the draft. And notable ones are we got Von Bell coming in out of the Bengals, who had a pretty decent and pretty good season with the Bengals last year. Looking in to shore up that secondary, which is what we needed to have. Also, too, from the Bengals, not to say, and who I personally was hoping to hear that we, after Greg Olson left, was getting this guy here coming to the Bengals, Hayden Hurst, in as our tight end. We needed a tight end. We need a pass catching tight end. We've been stating that we haven't had one solid since Greg Olson retired, and sadly, the tight end room has been very lackluster when it's come to receiving. They really hadn't done much to even put themselves in position to get the ball. We've had Ian Thomas, who came in with Greg Olson, who you thought would have been the heir apparent to him, hasn't done well. Tommy Tremble, we drafted a season or two ago. He hasn't turned out well. So they go out, get free agency. And like I said, Panther Nation, they've done great jobs with these signings because there are not a lot of players that have big contracts. They've learned to stay away from those big contracts, and they've learned to try to get those people that have pretty much. And for me, it's like plug and play. Put them in there, give them a 2-year deal, 1-year deal, do that, then be able to come in and basically the next season get younger in that position. So, I thought it was really good choices by the Panthers in these positions here and what they did, how they done it, and what they're going to do, not just this season, but next season as well. Because Panther Nation, we got to at least give it 2 seasons because we understand and know that, one draft is not going to fix everything. One off season won't do it, but it's a good start in what we got. So moving along. We ended up letting Deontay Foreman go. I was real sad over that because I felt like Deontay was our dude last year. He didn't play the first 4 games, but still got 900 plus yards on the ground for us. So I was really happy about that. So what did we do? Ended up going and signing from the Philadelphia Eagles, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders will be a 3-down back for us, and that will be a change for him. That's what he's not really had a chance to be that in Philadelphia as they did with their running backs. But coming into Carolina, with Chuba hopefully learning and hopefully improving, we hope that him coming behind Miles Sanders will be a great learning experience and great clash there with running backs. Now, the only problem that you have is that Miles Sanders is not a bruiser back. I mean, we have so many running backs that are fast, but to have a bruiser back, we don't have that now that Deontay is gone. So it remains to be seen on what we get out of Miles Sanderson. But he probably, I'm looking for him to have a big season, though. And last but not least, Panther Nation, that, like I said, DJ Moore was traded away. A very inexperienced, very depleted wide receiver corps, which was different than last year. So what did the Panthers do? They wanted to make sure Bryce had some security blankets. They want to make sure that Bryce had some playmakers. They want to make sure Bryce had some space makers on the field that would be able to, where they wouldn't have to rely on him to have to continuously go downfield, because one of the drawbacks of Bryce, aside from his size and stature, was the fact that he just doesn't have a strong downfield arm. He has that typical average quarterback arm, but it isn't a relatively strong arm that's going to continuously go downfield. We are missing one signee on here, which was of course DJ Chark out of the Detroit Lions. He's a speed threat. However, he has been hurt. He has been had a tendency to be hurt. So what are we going to get this season? It remains to be seen out of these. But having Adam Thielen there, a veteran presence, who's a red zone target, who out of the last 3 seasons had over 30-some touchdowns in the red zone. He's not going blistered. He's older veteran wide receiver, but he will help with a veteran presence with the other wide receivers as we have, including Mingo, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault. All those guys have it in there where, he should be that present. And also, too, is he can get him open in space and make some plays. He's a playmaker, which is why they got him to begin with. So, can't wait to see how Thielen adds in his veteran presence. And looking at it, he will be QB1 starting the season. So, we'll see how things go and what the Panthers do between now and the season, which is a little less than I'd say a week and a half before the opening kickoff for the 2023 season. So, How's our schedule going to look? How our team's going to look? Who we're going against? What are people's expectations? Let's mosey on down to the Panthers 2023 season. So, opening up the season, actually back to back games are division opponents. This is the earliest I know of the Panthers have been able to have division opponents this early. They usually don't. They usually have it near the back end of the season. But starting week one, the Panthers will be going to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Then they will spend week two, which will be a short week because the Panthers will be on prime time Monday Night Football for Bryce Young to be out there under the nation's eye to take on the New Orleans Saints, who signed this year with quarterback Derek Carr. Remains to be seen on what can happen there. Week three, we have the Seattle Seahawks, and then we have the Minnesota Vikings. Some very tough opponents this season. We'll round it out here in week 5 and 6. We have Detroit, of course, who we played in the preseason, followed by the Miami Dolphins under Tua Tagovailoa. TTs like to be called. They had some re-energizing last year when Tyreek Hill came in, made some additions this year. Remains to be seen. Of course, our bye week this year is finally not going to be a bye week where we have to wait till near the end of the season. It is at week 7, almost halfway through the season before we get it. So, great thing there. Week 8, that's a matchup I would look at. Week 8, we have Houston Texans, which we didn't. I said it was a 2-man race during the draft. We drafted Bryce Young. The Houston Texans were 2. They ended up picking C.J. Stroud. So Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud meet face to face, number 1, number 2, on week 8 of this year's NFL season. Coming up in week 9, another draft pick, one of the quarterbacks of the top 4 quarterbacks of this year, AR Anthony Richardson. He is now tabbed as starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, so we will get and meet in week 9. Week 10, of course, who we traded a draft pick for, which we've got currently having PJ Walker, he was cut. We traded DJ Moore. He is their number 1. So DJ Moore, will be having sort of a visit with him and his former team, see what he has to prove this year. Panthers take on Chicago week 10. Week 11, Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? How about not them Cowboys? So Cowboys coming into Carolina week 11. Team's got a new look. The team traded just a few days ago for 49ers quarterback Trey Lance to go in there and I guess give Dak a little bit of a pressure to step up this year. They didn't sign Zeke Elliott. They signed Tony Pollard, so he's going to be their running back. So anxious to see what the boys do in week 11. Week 12, of course, that will be the 4th and final of the top 4 quarterbacks in this past season draft, with Will Levis being the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. It remains to be seen if he is the starter, as I've not heard whether he is tabbed yet. Back week 13 and 14, back-to-back division matches again. Actually, 3 straight weeks, 13, 14, and 15, all division games. Well, I can't stress that fact, Panther Nation. We know how important to have these games are, how important it is to win these division games. The first 2 games of the season being division games, these are games we're going to need to win. If we don't, there's going to be it's going to be really hard for us to make up ground in that division. As we saw last season, the Panthers were 7-10, and they were still just a win away from actually winning the division, even with a below 500 record. So the division is still up in the air, as the teams are all seem weak. We'll have to see how Derek Carr fits out in New Orleans. But as far as quarterback-wise, with Baker Mayfield being the quarterback tabbed in Tampa Bay, and Desmond Ridder looking like he's going to be the quarterback for the Falcons this year, who probably going to tank and try to get Caleb Williams in the next draft coming up. So remains to be seen, but it is the division. If they can hold it together, if they can get things together, it will be there for the taking and for them to come back. So let's look at the last 3 games of the season, week 16, 17, and 18. Panthers take on not the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers, but the Jordan Love Green Bay Packers. Of course, big news out of Green Bay is that Aaron Rodgers ended up signing with the and traded to the New York Jets. He will be their starter, and Jordan Love is given the reins. He's been behind Rodgers for a while now. They're going to look to him to try to see if he can take some of that learning and some of that, time on the bench and watching Rodgers to see if he can put that to use and lead Green Bay Packers to continue, what they do. Week 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who surprisingly had a really good year last year with Trevor Lawrence settling in there. He looks like he is starting to get himself where he should be at with this team and the direction in which this team is going in this year. And last but not least, rounding out the 2023 Carolina Panthers season, Week 18 will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is a home game, so the Panthers end the season at home with a division game. Will this play a part? Will it come down to that final game, much like it did last season when the Panthers lost to Tampa Bay to end up allowing them to take first place in the NFC South? So remains to be seen. Also, too, we have a couple of some good news here came from a couple of players from our past. David Tepper opened up the 2023 Hall of Honor this year, and we are pleased to welcome two of our distinguished players who had an impact with us. The number 90, Julius Peppers out of North Carolina, who had an impact on our line for us and who had a lot of sacks on our for our team and has had a wonderful, wonderful career. Came back to finish out his career as a Panther. And also, to one of my favorite players of the old school Panthers. He was here before Smith. He was the quarterback before Smith, and he was Smith's co-captain or partner in crime when Steve Smith played. Was, of course, number 87 himself, Muhsin Muhammad. Both these guys and gentlemen will join Steve Smith, Wesley Walls, Jake Delhomme, Sam Mills. I mean, on that Hall of Honor. So, congrats to these guys. Can't wait for the game for these guys to be inducted into that. So, the Panther Nation, this is winding it down here, getting ready to close the video out, and I hope it's not been too long. But I wanted to make sure I got a video, and I will be on the regular with getting the videos done and making sure they are put out here on the 2023 season. I will get back to the grind of it. Hopefully we have a good season this year, improve on what we did last year, get more and build on those wins, get more than 7 or more. That's what we're looking for this year. So a lot of additions, a lot of optimism, a new coach, new coaching staff, new regime here. So let's look forward to it, and we'll see what happens here, and we'll go to it. So week and a half away, Panther Nation, to the opening of the 2023 season against the Atlanta Falcons. And all we can do is keep pounding, supporting our team, doing everything we can to just really, really go out there and try our best to cheer our team on, support our team, and just have optimism and have some patience. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight, but the Panthers will, I do believe that they're going to slowly rebuild, and they're going to make the Panther Nation proud of them and dedicate themselves to David Tepper finally showing that he's willing to do what it takes. And he has unloaded a lot of money on the Carolina Panthers for them to do what they do. They got the coach. The coach opened up the bank for the coaching staff to get the coaching staff, which we call the Dream Team coaching staff. And I just look forward to a great 2023 season. Having optimism, but having minimal optimism, because we got to keep low expectations and build from there. So hope you enjoyed the video, Panther Nation. If you do, like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment and below, follow social media as always, and definitely look forward to getting back on the grind here with the 2023 season for the Carolina Panthers. This is Bill Mack with the Panther Prowl saying, keep pounding there, Panther Nation.